All right. Few pictures. Oh, and then assessment. So there's Alexander William Kinney. That's my wife and I's first child, our son. That is him just out probably a couple hours after he's been cleaned up and stuff. There we are in the hospital with him all swaddled up in his cute little Alexander blanket. I think his mom, or her mom, my mother-in-law got that for Alex. There he is. That's what people say. But he's content / a little grumpy there. He's sleeping pretty well though. With his little ghost outfit there. He actually has on a layer underneath and then the ghost outfit. I think my wife and I are about to take him to his first doctor's checkup, and she's like, we gotta make sure he's warm before he goes out the house. And I was like, I feel like this is a little extra, but alright, hun. So he was warm. There he is again, looking super happy and content with Sirius Black in the background. Just, I can't tell if he was like, hey, give me attention, mom and dad, or just, oh, he's a cutie too. But yeah, that was just the perfect picture. My wife took that. Yeah. And then there's me. I think I just fed him, which is why the bottle's right here. But
you look fed him.
No,
he's just concerned.
No, that. I was just honestly content. It was exciting just holding my son like that. So Alexander William Kinney, that's him.
When was he born?
October 12th.
That's my birthday.
Is it really?
Yes.
Well, I won't be able to forget your birthday now.
Hope not, at least.
Yeah, right? So, yeah, October 12th, that Wednesday that y'all came back to school, my wife and I were in the hospital, and he came at 1 something, 1:21?
In the morning?
That is one of
PM.
the most beautiful things in life, is seeing a child's music.
Wow.
You couldn't have never been in the room where it happened, and it's not that beautiful. Man, there's fluids going everywhere, there's leaking.
Don't die,
It's not about the fluids, it's just the fact that that is your child.
I mean, that's true, but like, it's
It's
a little gross, right? Like, I love Alex, but I'm okay. Huh?
Did you pass out?
No, it doesn't bug me like that. It's just, it's not cute, right? Like, yes.
In the background,
Do you think you'll ever have another child?
We're probably not gonna have another biological one. We are talking about adopting at least one more. So that may be the option, but it's always on the table. All right. To get back to our lessons and the things that we are learning, and I mean, I love the Bible and all, but that's not what we're doing right now. It's math class, okay? Yeah. There's this weird thing where God created math too, so it's like he thinks it's important, so we're going to learn it. So active collaboration, right? So please remember, at the end of the day, do you know who in class is going to learn the most?
the people who elaborate and pay attention and ask questions.
So the people who are talking the most.
Yeah.
Like legitimately. The person who learns the most talks the most. Or the person who talks the most learns the most. Now let's clarify. It's the person who talks about the math the most who's going to learn the most.
No.
Because if you're talking about, I think one of my friends went to see Black Adam last night. So if you're talking about Black Adam in the middle of class, that's not going to help you learn about math. What?
We were just talking about Black.
Really?
Yeah.
One of my friends went with his wife to see it last night down in Mobile, but he was telling me about it. Anyways, it's he who talks the most, learns the most. And please hear me very clearly on this, because this is an important distinction. Me saying whoever talks the most, learns the most, does not mean that that's the person who makes an A. Learning does not mean that you make an A, because if you were at a place where you're making a 20%, but you talk and you grow and you learn and you make a 70%, that's a 50% increase, right? That's more learning than someone who goes from a 90 to a 95. That person just started pretty high already. He who talks the most will, in fact, learn the most. And so this active collaboration side of things is very, very important to me, and I think it's long overdue for me to have a reminder, and I've been gone for 2 weeks. So in whole class discussions, what are the things I'm expecting out of you? Not small group, whole class.
I have no idea.
They share their thoughts and questions.
Okay, so weirdly, Joey, even if you didn't already know the answer, is up here on the board. So instead of giving up and saying I don't know, which is your go-to instead of trying, it's right here. The first thing I heard Karia say, what is it?
They share their thoughts.
Share your thoughts. Just keep in mind, like, you are to work with people in your small group. And I need this to be very, very clear. You are to be working with people in your small group on the math. Because when you do, you will have ideas to share. I'm not saying it's going to come easily. But I am saying you should be working on the math in your small groups. You should be talking and sharing those ideas out during whole class discussion. If you ever sit there silent, it's not because you didn't have a chance to have an idea. Because every single one of you, at least when everyone is here, has 4 people in a group, so 3 others to generate ideas. So if you're sharing your thoughts, it doesn't have to be your own thoughts. It could be anyone at your groups. You're developing ideas, so don't make it this weird thing where like, I don't want to say anything because I'm scared that people are going to laugh at me. No, you're sharing your group's ideas. Talk it out. Because when I hear misconceptions, I can address them. And when you get it right, I can praise you for it. Either way, you're growing and you're learning. What else do you need to do in whole class discussion? Sharing thoughts. What else?
Explain why you got a solution.
Okay, so yes, you want to explain your solutions. It's more of a assessment time, right? Like looking up here, what do I want to see during whole class? Someone's already talked about one of them. You need to be sharing your ideas, but also, thank you. You got to ask those questions. Y'all look at me like, I don't understand, Mr. Kinney. Guys, literally, underlined right here, whole class discussion. You share thoughts and discoveries. You ask questions, both in general and of other students' thinking. After students share out ideas, I hope you started to notice, I like to ask this one question a lot. Does anybody have a question, or does anybody want to push back? Right, does anyone want to push back on that? It's this idea that when we are listening to each other and we are engaged in math class, we should, when we listen to other people, either have a question about what they're saying, or agree with what they're saying, or maybe push back, because, okay, but I thought that this was true, and I'm a little confused. Or are you sure about that? It doesn't have to be a disrespectful thing. It has to be a thing where we are learning and growing together. So share your thoughts and discoveries. Ask questions. Literally right now, I am telling you that a part of your job is to ask questions. That's part of your job. Legitimately, when I went back, so I don't know if I mentioned this, but the very first year I ever taught, I went back to the high school that I went to school at. They had an opening for a math position, they couldn't fill it, and one of my old teachers knew that I was thinking about going into education, so she said, hey, would you be interested? So I interviewed and I taught there for a year. While I was there, a teacher decided to pull a prank on me, where she like recruited everyone that she taught to ask me like a whole bunch of questions one day to piss me off, right? She was like, oh, if I get them to ask all these questions, it'll really frustrate Mr. Kinney. And I didn't even notice they were doing it. Like at the end of class, they're like, Mr. Kinney, didn't you think we were asking a lot of questions? I was like, I didn't notice. Well, it turns out that apparently I asked a lot of questions in this teacher's class. Like a lot of questions. To the point where she remembered it 5 years later and recruited people to ask questions in my own class to frustrate me. But it didn't frustrate me. Because, do you know how you get your questions answered? By asking them. Do you know how you become the smartest in the room?
When you ask questions, you get a better understanding.
Right. And that was legitimately how I thought about it at that time. I don't think about it anymore about being the smartest in the room. I think about it as being the smartest version of me. And the smartest version of me is one who grows and who learns and who develops by paying attention in whole class discussions and ask questions when appropriate. Okay? Huh? Being on top of your game, right? But ask all the questions, like that's part of your job. When you ask questions, I want you to understand, to ask a question, you have to be engaged, you have to be thinking. And so I'm telling you to ask all the questions. The only thing that legitimately frustrates me and will piss me off is apathy and just sitting there and doing nothing. That's the only thing. Because you are capable. That's why I ask you to respond when I greet you, good afternoon. And I want you to respond with, I am capable, because I want you to have that constant reminder that yes, you are capable. But if you do nothing, you will get nothing out of the class. Except for frustration because you'll fail. So stop doing that. Share your thoughts, ask questions, and then finally, what's the last thing you gotta do in whole class discussion? This is the simplest that most of us don't do. You gotta take notes, guys. Holy freaking crap. Like, come on. If you're not taking notes, there's no way that you're engaging with the material. And even if you are engaging a little bit, if you don't take notes actively, are you going to have anything at home to refer back to? No. I don't know what the best method for you to study is. They talk about this idea that there's these different learning styles, right? Like some people are visual, some people are kinesthetic, all these different things. Well, I don't know about that, but that's for study time. And I will say this, that it has been shown that that's not very effective and doesn't make a huge difference in the classroom. Like people don't learn differently in the classroom. You might learn better in studying. You might feel more comfortable with one method or another. But there's been research study after research study that shows that like different learning styles isn't really a thing. But if you feel more comfortable with visual stuff, take the notes that we have in class, convert them to flashcards and go through flashcards. Or create your own graphic organizer to organize all the information to rewrite your notes. If you need to, if you're auditory, talk these ideas out with a friend, somebody, right? Take the notes and study them, which might be a foreign concept, and you got to get over that. You got to study. But take notes so that you have something to refer back to later. All right. Those are the expectations in whole class discussion. In small group work, what do you need to be doing? Again, share those ideas. Be engaged. But what does it mean to be engaged? You got to share ideas. What else? Oh, you got to ask questions again? What is this wildness? Push back on what your neighbors say. Guys, the more that you talk, the more you're engaged. Like, point blank period. And don't sit there and just say, well, I asked a question and they didn't answer me. Usually that's not even true. It is sometimes. But if someone is asking a question, one, it is your job to listen to them and to respond. Or if you're not sure, don't ignore them. Talk about it, try to figure out an answer. If you're the one asking a question, don't ask it once really quietly and then quit asking. Keep pestering them. If you keep asking a question, eventually someone's going to what? Answer it. Like, they will. No one's going to ignore you forever because it gets obnoxious when people keep asking the same question over and over and over again. But keep asking it. Okay? Yeah, sounds like me in school. And look, I grew and I learned a lot. Okay? Keep asking all the questions, guys. It's the best thing for you. And again, in order for you to talk about something, you have to have ideas going. That doesn't mean you have the right ideas, but you have ideas going. And when you have ideas going, you're going to grow and learn. This is not designed to be a punishment. This is designed to give you clear expectations for what it means to be successful. When you do these things, you're going to grow and to learn. But you got to be engaged. You got to do something. That's it. Like, if you don't do anything, you're not going to learn anything. You're going to sit there and you're going to be frustrated. And some of us are going to fail because we did nothing. I can't change that. I've done everything I can. Miss Essel has done everything that she can to help you. You got to make a decision to take advantage of things, of the opportunities ahead of you. All right? Actually, I'm going to come back to this scoring rubric later. The only thing, I'm not going to spend as much time as I did in my other classes. The only thing I want to point out is this. If you score a 0 or a 1, what does that mean overall? Like, what does that 0 to 1 mean?
You didn't explain.
Maybe.
Your answer probably was valid, but you just don't know what you're doing.
Guys, you're guessing, and you're not actually looking at the board. This is part of the issue. We don't read.
Little or no evidence of conceptual understanding.
Oh! Little or no evidence. Here's the thing. I'm not saying that you don't understand it. I'm saying that I saw little evidence because you're going to make a claim with whatever the final answer is. But what's the evidence for that claim? Well, if you randomly write down the right answer or you circle the correct answer, you maybe got it right, but does that really tell me that you really understand it? No, there's no evidence there for that claim. I'm looking for the evidence of your understanding, right? If you score a 2, what are you looking at?
Limits the evidence of conceptual understanding, but I was like, and or proceed to.
So limited evidence of your understanding. If you're looking at those 3s and 4s, you have clear evidence or clear, consistent, and convincing evidence. And that's the thing, like, I'm asking you, what evidence do you have of your understanding? I get very frustrated when I see blank answers, because I'm not saying that you have to perfectly know the answer. I'm asking you for some evidence of your understanding. Just anything that you know. Like, if I ask you, what is the equation of this line, and you don't know what the equation of the line is, but maybe you know y equals mx plus b, could you write that down? Is that some evidence of understanding? So quit leaving things blank. What do you also know that you need for the equation of a line? Slope and y-intercept. Even if you don't know how to identify them for that problem, could you at least write down slope and y-intercept and show me some evidence of understanding? Show me anything you know. I'm looking for evidence of understanding. Literally, to score a 1 minus, there just has to be a slight or minor reference to some correct, relevant mathematical thinking. That's it. I just need a little bit of evidence. Something. Okay? So show me that evidence. We'll talk more about that moving forward. And so we're going to have a quick little recap here. I need you to get your books out, lesson 3.
Lesson 3 already?
Dog, you're in lesson 4. This is a recap of lesson 3.
I'm not supposed to know. I've barely even been in the class for the past 2 weeks.
Joe, you're stressing yourself out.
I'm supposed to know that.
Joe, have you not even been here when Miss Estel was in here?
I've been doing this and telling Miss White tell me to do.
Hold on,
Which
this is
is
on
to
me.
wait for 10 minutes, get my work, and go and
Hey,
report.
Joey, I need you to calm down, dude.
That's what I've been doing
Joey, where's your book?
in my backpack.
What are you supposed to be doing, dude? M1-33. Miss Estel went over that one up with you, didn't she?
Yeah, but we don't know. She said, but they might take it over.
Oh, gotcha. M1-33.
I did it though.
Good. All right.
You said it.
So, yeah, M1-33. So here's a couple of things I wanted to talk about. First off, you, more than any other class that I have, really did, I'm going to say it, y'all pissed me off. The first Friday I was going, what did y'all do?
I don't remember.
You were supposed to do an iReady assessment. Not a single person did the iReady assessment, even though it was on Schoology. Y'all were supposed to be in the library, I think?
That was because she didn't.
We were on the field trip.
What?
We went on a field trip Friday, but when we came back, we did go in the library, but she didn't tell us
But
this week.
if I was gone, you were supposed to be on Schoology. Didn't y'all get on Schoology on Thursday?
I was gone.
Well, we did. I don't remember.
Okay. Well, here's the thing, because I've said this before. I said this before I left. If I am absent, the lesson plans are on Schoology. And they're really easy to find. If you go into Schoology and you click on this class, let's go ahead and show you what this looks like. Alright. Courses, geometry. Okay, so this is what will automatically pop up. Anybody see a folder up here? Joey, dude, I'm trying to help make sure that you know how to do this moving forward. Head up, please, sir. Joey. Okay. Anybody see a folder up there that might be useful if you need to see the resources or the expectations for a day? Oh yeah, the current week's materials. That might be somewhere to go. Now, because I'm here, I haven't uploaded today's yet, but I will later. But I wasn't here yesterday, was I?
No, sir.
No? Let's see what's under Thursday. Oh, look. Lesson plans for students. Man. I wrote out a lot of information there for you, didn't I? Pretty detailed about what I was expecting you to do. If I'm ever absent moving forward, and Miss Estel is not here, that's where you need to go. The information is very clearly posted there. You just have to use your eyeballs. If you ever need to go back to a previous week, right, it's no longer a current week, what unit are we in? Unit 3, constructing the coordinate system. There's only 3 folders there, it should be pretty straightforward. Notice one of those folders is a new folder that I just started adding, which is the Carnegie Learning videos. These videos are made by Carnegie Learning. And so if you click in here, there's all the videos that Carnegie has created that would be helpful in you learning what you need to know for this unit. It has information about how to do a perpendicular bisector, which I'm going to give back your understanding checks on Monday. A lot of you need to grab a compass, and make sure you bring it back at some point, but you need to practice creating a perpendicular bisector. The notes are in the book, it's in lesson 2. There's videos on YouTube. There's this video from Carnegie Learning. Sir?
I don't even know what a perpendicular bisector is.
Well, then look at lesson 2 in the book.
Where is that?
Well, it's before lesson 3. And Joey, I'm sorry I'm getting snarky with you, but you're just responding without thinking, and I know you're intelligent enough to know that
I
lesson
mean,
2 is
seriously,
before
I
lesson
don't
3.
know what a perpendicular bisector is. I don't know any of this bullcrap we've been going over in frickin' weeks. Why can't you understand that?
Hey Joey, the perpendicular bisector is something that we went over when I was here. So I know you know what it is, and I need you to calm down and use your resources, because it defines it in that textbook. And you're freaking out instead of staying calm and using your resources. Okay. So the videos are there. The lesson notes are right here. Notice I have October 13th, October 14th, 17th, 18th, so on and so forth. And I'll go ahead and tell you this. That Literacy for All, the outline, y'all are going to have a day to write the essay in class, but very clearly y'all did not watch the videos that I shared with you in there about what I was expecting for the outline. We did not follow the formatting at all. There's a 7 or 8 minute video, maybe 10 minutes, about how to do an outline, and we did not pay attention. And so before we do the essay, I'm going to give you feedback on your outline, I'm going to give you feedback on your annotations, and you need to revise and resubmit your outlines for most of you. So please understand, whatever grade you earn, whatever score you earn, it's not a final grade, but if you choose not to improve your outline, it will be a final grade. Learn from your mistakes, grow and get better, but also let's use our resources. Because here's the thing, I know that I left notes on the board, I know that Miss Estel told y'all to go to Schoology, so if you didn't, you chose not to. 8 of my 30 students managed to find their way onto Khan Academy, which means that 8 of us went onto Schoology and followed the directions there. That means I had 22 students who did not go onto Schoology and read the lesson notes. I had reports from Miss Estel and from other teachers who stopped in on this classroom, saw students sleeping when Miss Estel was teaching. And not just some, a lot. A lot of us were distracted by the antics of 2 students, maybe more, rather than doing the work that we were supposed to do. Your education matters. And I wish some of us would act like it. Now I will say, overall this group that I have right now, y'all are better than a lot of the ones who are not here, which I hate to say it like that. And what I mean by that is you care more about your education. But be a good influence on those who are goofing off. And also do your best. You can't control other people, but you can do your best to focus. And some of us are not doing that. Joe, you good? Are you better at least? Okay, cool. Good talk. All right. Any questions about how to find resources on Schoology? It's there. Make sure you're using them. Kaylin, put it off, please. Alrighty then. So, lesson 3, quick recap. Tease and train tracks. This is all about what 2 concepts? Parallel and perpendicular lines. So we're going to do a quick recap. I need you to follow along and go to the pages when I get to a page. right here, first off, we looked at parallel lines. I believe we took some patty paper, right? And what did we do to create a parallel line?
Made
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we traced it on patty paper, but then what did we do with that patty paper? Translated it up, translated it right, left, or down. And so we want to recognize that parallel lines are just, what's the word we just used? Translations, right? Of other lines. And that means that the slopes stay the same. Okay? So parallel lines are translations of each other. So the slopes are what? Are the same. You can say equivalent, really they're the same or they're equal. And so that's an important detail. Parallel lines, right, are created by just translating one line. And so the slopes are the same, they're equal, they're equivalent. Does that sound familiar to what we've learned? You back? All right. Why don't you jump over to group 3? All right, so then we also looked at perpendicular lines. What transformation created a perpendicular line?
rotation.
A rotation. Did I erase too much? Or yes, what did you still need?
I just got a parallel line.
Parallel lines are translations of other lines, right? Or of each other. So the slopes are the same. Okay. So perpendicular lines, what are they?
Rotation.
By what degree measured?
90 degrees.
Perpendicular lines are 90-degree rotations from each other. And so what do we know about their slopes?
They are different. Negative.
They're not just different. Be careful with the word negative. I'll talk about why in a second. So like if I had the slope of 3/4, what would be the perpendicular slope? Perpendicular slope would be what?
Also a
-4 divided by 3.
And
Say again.
negative.
Yeah, there's a slightly more accurate way. So let me show this reason. So if the slope is -2, what is the perpendicular slope? 1 divided by 2. 1/2 or 1 divided by 2, right? Over is not a really mathematical word. So here's the reason why I caution against saying negative. That's a negative number, right? Is that a negative number?
No.
So it's the opposite and reciprocal. The word opposite means change the sum. The word opposite means to multiply by a negative. So, and the slopes are opposite and reciprocals. Okay. So perpendicular lines are 90-degree rotations from each other, and the slopes are opposites and reciprocals.
I'm just confused about how you do that. Why does it become a fraction that's just -2?
What is any number always understood to be divided by?
1.
The reciprocal?
Just flip it over.
Does that make sense now?
Yeah.
So if you ever have an integer like this, understood it's always divided
It's
by
always
1.
something like that.
All right. Questions, comments, concerns about parallel and perpendicular? talk. All right, so here's something I want to point out. This is like 1 or 2 pages over. Thank you. 36? Correct, 136. All right, or M1-36. So I want to point this out. Lines L and M, they are what?
Parallel.
Does anyone see a symbol that tells us L and M are parallel?
Is it a T thing? It's right there. The arrow.
These little arrows, because they are the same, that tells us they're parallel to each other. Which means, what can I do to line L to make it map onto line M? Translate it, right? Remember the transformation is a translation, right? Does that make sense? We good with that? So if I were to translate line L up, where would this angle 1 be? Does anyone remember what those angles are called?
Corresponding.
Those would be corresponding. Remember, you see how they're in the same spot? Like if I translated up, they'd be in the same spot, so they correspond to each other. Does anyone know anything about those 2 angles?
The top right.
They are acute, they are top right. Okay, so would they be complementary, supplementary, or congruent?
No, supplement.
No, I remember the words, but I don't remember the difference.
Okay, what does it mean to be congruent?
The same.
They're the same. Okay, they would map perfectly to each other. Complementary means that they add up to 90 degrees, and supplementary means they add to 180. So congruent means that they map to each other, they are the same. Complementary, add to 90. Supplementary.
So it's congruent.
Yeah, when they map perfectly to each other? So they are congruent, they have the same angle measure. Make sense?
So, what are the types?
Congruent, complementary, supplementary. Okay? But yeah, 1 would map to 8. Notice 2 would map to,
7.
and so 2 and 7 would also be corresponding and congruent, okay? Now, because of some other properties, someone started talking about this kind of angle earlier, angles 1 and 6. Notice how they're on the inside of parallel lines, alternate sides of the,
Oh my gosh.
Alternate interior.
yeah. They're on alternate sides of the transversal, they're on the inside of the parallel lines, that's it.
That's how I remember it. Interior, inside.
Right, that's literally why it was named that, like it's not,
Alternate is opposite, right?
the alternate sides are opposite sides of the transversal, right?
Oh, but I feel like probably the alternate.
Alternate, yep, interior and exterior, so like 8 here and 3 here,
Alternate exterior.
alternate exterior. I will point this out, you see how all of these angles are acute angles? All of those are also congruent. Remember, 1 and 8 are corresponding, right? They're literally in the same spot. Anyone know what 1 and 3 would be called?
Alternate external.
Vertical.
They're vertical. Remember, vertical angles are also always congruent, right?
Are 2 and 1 going to be horizontal?
2 and 1, anyone know what those would be called?
Linear.
Linear pair. They're a pair of angles that create a line. So they add they're also supplementary.
Like where 7 is, that is a supplementary angle.
To which angle?
Like where 7 is, like what is out there?
Well, it's an obtuse angle, and it's supplementary to 8. It's also supplementary to 6, because they're creating linear pairs. But the last one I do want to point out is something like 1 and 5. Anyone know what those would be called?
Exterior. No, interior.
They're definitely interior. They're inside the parallel lines. So are they on alternate sides of the transversal? No. They're on the same side. So you could literally call them same side interior, or sometimes they're called consecutive interior.
That's what I learned.
Yeah, they're called both. I learned it as consecutive interior. A lot of teachers today are calling it same side interior. It means the same thing. But I will point this out, are these congruent? No, that one's acute, that one's obtuse, but they are what?
On the same side.
They're going to be supplementary. Because think about it this way. What do we know about 1 and 8?
They're congruent.
Very congruent, they're corresponding, right? And we know that 8 and 5 have to add up to what? 180, right? So the measure of angle 5 plus the measure of angle 8 equals 180. But we also know that 1 and 8 are congruent, so their measures are the...
How do you add angles properly?
Well, you need to know what their angle measures are. Like, I'd have to get out a protractor and measure them. But this is the symbol for the measure of angle 5 plus the measure of angle 1 is equal to 180 degrees.
Just by looking at
Yeah, we just know that because remember, what do we know about these two lines here? They are parallel. And so if I translate this line up, right, 1 corresponds to 8. So I know that these are congruent, right? And because of that and linear pairs and vertical angles, I can prove everything else, right? But I know that 8 plus 5, that's a linear pair. So measure of angle 5 plus measure of angle 8 is 180. We go with that right here? And then I know that the measure of angle 8 plus the measure of angle, is equal to the measure of angle 1. Because these are corresponding. Does that make sense? Because of those two things, I can substitute this in to show this. Right, so there's lots of ways to do it. It's just that we know this property to be true. Does that recap make sense? Okay. And so we do want to keep that in mind. I'll go ahead and tell you right now, I'm not going to assess you a whole lot on that. It's mostly that understanding of that these are parallel lines because it's a translation up. And I do want you to be familiar with those terms, consecutive interior or same side interior, alternate exterior, things like that. So I will ask you to identify those kinds of angles. All right. I think that's it. One thing I do want to point out, I don't know if Ms. Estel talked about this because I don't think I asked her to, but this is important to notice. You see this slope and this perpendicular slope? What do I get if I multiply those two slopes?
How do you even get those equations?
So, hold on. It's not an equation. I'm just asking the question, what do I get if, you talking about this here and here? Joey, I gave that to everyone earlier. I just said, hey, if I have this slope, what's the perpendicular slope? And remember, it's because they're opposites and reciprocals. The opposite of a positive is a negative. The reciprocal of 3/4 is 4/3.
-1.
That would give you -1. What's -2 divided by 1 times 1/2? It's what? It'd be -1 as well.
So every time it's gonna be -1?
The product of perpendicular slopes is always -1.
It's a
So that's a pattern.
It's definitely a pattern, right? And it's because, what's a positive times a negative always going to be?
Negative.
It's going to be negative. And the whole point of reciprocals, right? 3 divided by 4, right? Times 4 divided by 3. What's 3 divided by 3?
1.
Remember, dividing here, right?
1.
That's a 1. What's 4 divided by 4?
1.
So if I have reciprocals, they're always going to create that 1. And a positive times a negative is always negative.
So if you see a negative sign anywhere in there, it's going to be negative.
No, but 1 positive times 1 negative is a negative number, right? But if you have a -3 times a -2, that's going to give you a positive 6. Right? Okay. So that's just a quick little note there. Yeah. So, we already did this. This would be page 42. If the slope is 2/3, what's the perpendicular slope? -3 divided by 2 or -3 halves. Remember, over is the one thing that's not mathematically accurate. You can say -3 divided by 2 or -3 halves. This -3 over 2 is not accurate. So what's the perpendicular slope for B? 5 divided by 4, or 5/4, and then the perpendicular slope for C?
-3 over 1. I mean, 3 divided by 1.
Remember, it's already understood to be -3 divided by 1. So the perpendicular slope would be 1/3. And remember, this is part of the reason. What's your question about that, Jamie?
Why didn't you put in the negative?
Well, because it was already negative. Remember, it's the opposite. If it's already negative, what's the opposite of a negative? A positive. Right. And this is a big reason why I pointed out that detail of the product of perpendicular slopes is always what? Negative 1. If you put a negative here, that would give me a positive 1, not a negative 1. So you can quickly check yourself, right? You originally said a positive 3, I believe, right, Nathan?
Yeah.
Yeah? And notice if I did a positive 3, I get a negative 9. Notice that I need a negative 1 if I multiply perpendicular slopes. So that's a quick way to check yourself. So you were getting the reciprocal, you were getting the opposite, but we need both opposite and reciprocal. We good with that? Because that's a quick way to check it. If I do 1/3 times negative 3, guess what I get? Negative 1. It's a quick way to check yourself on perpendicular slopes. Good? Questions, comments, concerns? I know it's a recap, so hopefully that we feel comfortable with that, right? Okay? Uh-oh. I completely skipped 3.3 and 3.4 that I meant to talk about. Oh no, I skipped it because we're going to go over, I might just go over the understanding check today instead of giving you the new one. What's up? So you have two options as I go over the understanding check. Either you can go to a different class and work on something while I go over the understanding check with students, or you take a 0 on it for now and then whatever you make on the test replaces that grade. I figured. Yes, sir. You want that same option? Same. Dang, all of y'all missed it?
It's just
See, I was sick and I was
I got you. But we'll go over it.
the thing.
What?
The thing with me is that if I didn't have a whole lot.
I got you.
Yeah, we don't have one.
Oh, that reminds me. One of the things that did, and I meant to mention this earlier, do not ever write on an understanding check that the teaching was poor. I had that from 2 or 3 students. And the reason why it frustrated me the most is this. Miss Estel, 1, was doing her absolute best to teach you those concepts. 2, if you had nothing written on that paper, that ain't on Miss Estel, that's on you. Especially when I hear reports from other teachers that students were sleeping in class. Miss Estel was teaching. You chose whether you engaged or not. Don't blame Miss Estel when you weren't doing your job.
She did good. Right.
She's a good teacher.
She was talking to everybody.
Literally, I know. Literally, as soon as I found out that my wife was pregnant, I went and talked with the professor at UA, and I asked him to give me his best student or teacher candidate because I wanted them to be in here when I was absent for paternity leave, and I knew she would do a good job. So don't blame her when you're not doing what you need to do. All right. Yeah, we're not going to go to this understanding check. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up. I'm going to go ahead and just pass out the understanding check that y'all did, and we'll go over parts of it. I hadn't planned to do that, so I don't have that in my slides, but I'll pull an audible. That's fine. Yeah. No, never allowed to use the restroom ever again. Yes, go use the restroom.
Okay.
Oh, that thing.
Yeah, this thing.
I understand. I understood or only understood number 6 on that entire thing.
Yeah, that's what I get for collecting all.
Might as well not be here.
Say again? Why do y'all all have to just magically use the bathroom? Yeah, sure. Alright, so Maddie's not here. Addison. Aiden's not here. Anaya. Trent's not here. Karia.
Well, I don't even have thing for the first one.
Huh?
I have
Oh. You don't have a what?
right or wrong.
There's no score? Huh. It's, there's at least one, yeah, I don't know how I missed that. That'd be a 1.
Which is honestly what I would rather have.
By the way, you will each need a compass. Go grab one. Make sure you have one that's halfway decent that will allow you to create.
I'm using this for my estimate.
Alright, let's see, because I don't know if I'm
Go to compass. Janaya. Make sure that someone is getting you a compass for your group. At least one person per group. Ethan. Caitlin. Golly, is that really everybody?
I don't know.
Joey, I just got yours back today, so I haven't scored yours yet.
sorry.
But I will score it. Let me give you all blank copies for now.
Mr. Kenny, who did your compasses like these?
I got yours.
Oh, you know what in person.
And Joey, your negativity is so uplifting.
They tighten them down now.
Are you serious?
They ain't like flipping down.
Alright, who did not get to
I
understand
knew
check
it
out?
was the new ones that wasn't that bad. That's good right there.
I'm gonna take
They were good.
Deny it, Ethan. It doesn't take that long to find one. Come on now.
They weren't like
They're broken.
they weren't going now.
How did y'all break those?
We didn't like them. Bro, I forgot to
Hey, guys, grab one and let's go. Grab one and let's go. Out here. Hey. Who needs a copy of the understanding check because they did not take it or did not get one back? 1, 2, 3, 4. Huh? You have one. Take notes on it. Joey, you didn't get one, did you? Two, 3, 4, 5, 6.
No.
You got one back. Oh.
You so gone?
Just pay attention when I ask questions. Good goose.
Never heard.
Alright. Since we are going over this, I'm printing them out right now, but I want to go over as a reminder this active collaborative or the scoring rubric. So I want to remind you of this. Keep in mind that the scores that are on there are 100% about what idea?
Just fine.
Nope.
Understanding.
What about the understanding? The
Evidence.
evidence of understanding. If you pick a multiple choice answer, Taylor, focus here. If you pick a multiple choice answer and you get it wrong, is there any evidence of understanding? No. If you pick a multiple choice answer and you get it wrong, but you tell me a little bit of why you picked that answer, does that start to give me some evidence of your understanding?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Did you already put this grade in?
What's the issue? No, I have not. No. You just have to be careful with it, but yeah. Okay, so, show me your evidence of understanding. Show me the reasoning that you have. There has to be at least one thing that you know for every question. At least one thing. Show me something. And so 0 to 1, little or no evidence of understanding. And again, that's the other thing. If you randomly pick a correct answer on multiple choice, does that really give me evidence of your understanding?
No.
That's why it's the top end, but it's still in little to no evidence. At the bare minimum, you want to shoot for at least a 2 or a 2+. That's the bare minimum, right? But I will go ahead and tell you this. Like, I know that this seems really far down on the rubric, doesn't it? This 2? Like it's like the middle of the rubric. I know, I guess I don't have the whole thing up there, but 2 looks like it's the middle, right? So naturally, what do you think that would be as a grade? If you
Like a 50%.
You would think of 50%, it's not. If you average 2s across the board, you're actually looking at closer to a 75.
Only I had that in this class.
Joey, you gotta stop that negativity, man. Like, I'm over that, dude. You bring yourself down and prevent yourself from being as capable as you are. That's on you. Nuh-uh. You're talking back instead of reflecting and saying, man, I probably should be less negative. So, because here's the way that this rubric works. I'll go ahead and show you this. These are, again, this is not your grade. Please hear me very clearly on this. These are not your grades. These are scores about the evidence of understanding. If you get this 0, this is a true 0, you earn 0 points. If you get this 1-, you earn 1 point. If you get a 1, you earn 2 points. If you get a 1+, you get 3 points. But then it starts to slow down on this top end. A 2 earns you 3.5 points. 2+ is 4 points. A 3 is 4.5. A 3+ is 5. 4 is 5.5, and a 4+ is 6 points. So like a 2 is 3.5 out of 6 points. And you actually only need an average of 5.5 to earn a 100. And I think I set the 70 to be about 2.5 or 3 points. So what that means is if you consistently show me 2s, or if you're consistently earning 2s, then you have at least partial understanding. Legitimately, partial understanding. Shouldn't that be somewhere around a very low C, high D? Okay. That's how that works. You should be at the minimum shooting for a 2 every single time. You should be able to give me some understanding, a good start. But show me everything you know. This rubric is not your grade. It is literally just a reflection of the evidence I see of your understanding. I have to convert that to a grade. All right. Nope, that's not what I want. So let's look at this understanding check. So this first question right here. If you had picked up your compass, this question would have been a lot easier. We're trying to create a perpendicular bisector. Notice how they drew half an arc, or they drew an arc right here and an arc right here, right? Okay. What do you think the most common answers were? B was very common, and A was very common. Hey, but tell me this, what's the difference between answer choices B and A?
The point.
The only difference is whether you're drawing it at B or at A. But does it matter if I start at B?
No.
Or if I start at A?
No.
It could be either side, right? But I will point this out. If I were to draw this arc from here, would I be able to do that?
No,
Why not?
because it doesn't reach that point.
Oh yeah, it doesn't ever intersect with each other, would it? So what has to happen for these to intersect like this? C. Like, that's it. Oh yeah, I need to pass out the extras, my bad.
They dropped the D.
Well, instead of stressing about what you put the first time, let's learn from our mistakes. Did you need one too? Okay. All right. So, legitimately, and like you might want to make a note to yourself, because here's the thing, again, if it's not greater than half of the distance, what's not going to happen when you draw the arc? The arcs are not going to what? Intersect. Did you take this? No. Oh. missed you saying that you needed one, that's my bad.
This she was asking.
You were the one who asked her if she'd rather go to another classroom.
You ready?
Oh.
But when I asked a second ago who needed a copy, I didn't see her raise her hand. And there's only so many things I can remember at a time. Okay, does that make sense logically? Like it has to be over half the distance so that the arcs what? Intersect. Make that note to yourself. Y'all have made perpendicular bisectors so much harder than they have to be. They have to be able to intersect, so it has to be over half that distance. Here you go. Like, I might make a note to myself here, it doesn't matter. What point you start with. Like, legitimately, if you make that statement, it doesn't matter which point you start with. Does that show me some evidence of your understanding? Yes. Like, that is evidence that you understand it does not matter which point you start with. That earns you credit on the rubric. It's evidence of understanding. When do you use a straight edge to draw a line through the intersection of the arcs?
After you draw it.
After you draw the arcs. Isn't that literally the last step?
Yeah, I have no idea.
So if you had written out, hey, this is the last step, would that have helped in your evidence of understanding? Okay. The answer is C. And you would really want to make that note that the arcs won't intersect if the compass isn't over halfway. Arcs won't intersect if compass isn't greater than or over half the distance. Nope. That's a lie. I am definitely recording. I hope I'm recording. Good. Right? So notice there's like lots of stuff that you could have talked about there. Yeah, I'm recording. There's lots of stuff you could have talked about with number 1. Lots of it. Okay? What are your questions about number 1?
What is that line? Is that angle or line, maybe?
John, this right here.
Yes.
So when there's it's neither. That is the symbol for line segment. Because notice right here how it has endpoints and it stops. So if it has endpoints and stops, it's a line segment. If it's a line, does anyone know what I would put above AB?
A line?
Okay, but what do I need? So like that would only be line segment.
That's right. Endpoint.
Not endpoints.
Oh.
If it's a line, what does it do? It keeps
Going.
So what shows that it keeps
Two
going?
arrows.
Arrows. That would be line AB. And if I have one endpoint and one arrow,
That's the starting.
It means it starts at the dot. Keeps going.
right, does anyone know the name of a thing that, it's a what?
Ray?
It's a ray. Right, so you have line segment, you have line, and you have rays. Okay. And I will point this out, if you didn't notice, did I draw anything above this AB? That means it's the length of AB. If there's nothing drawn above it, it's the length of segment AB. Okay. All right, number 2. Even if you didn't know how to start this answer, or if you didn't know how to get the final answer, what is one detail that we should know about perpendicular slopes?
What are perpendicular slopes?
Negative. But they're opposite.
Opposites and reciprocals. Like if I know perpendicular, I know slopes are opposites and reciprocals.
I didn't know that.
Joey, dude, we literally talked about that not even 30 minutes ago.
Really good.
Yes, Joey.
I'm on the rank, ready.
It's not your